Get your copy today on Amazon and unlock your full potential.
While retinitis pigmentosa takes Mark's vision, his family gives him hope, whether at the family business or at home with his wife and sons. He knows he's not fighting alone. For 50 years, the Foundation Fighting Blindness has funded research into treatments and cures for blinding retinal diseases, providing hope to people with vision loss. And for Mark, winning the fight means being there for his family. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Help us end blinding diseases at fightingblindness.org.
Hey parents, you don't need the latest gizmo, slang, or clothes to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 AM WBNW. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a new guide available this month. It is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan. Mike, when you look at the big reasons that someone might want to undertake trust planning and how that dovetails with financial planning, what are the big items that come up for a lot of people?
Yeah, for most common reasons, there's four that I think about. One, in certain states and across the country, there's an estate tax, and so there's trusts that can help you mitigate the cost of that estate tax for future generations. There's trusts that can allow you to do sorts of bloodline planning. Maybe you have minor children and you're worried about passing away young. You can have trusts that are set up to deal with that situation. You have trusts that can avoid probate. And then the fourth one is sometimes a trust that might help deal with creditor protection. Sometimes a nursing home would be one of those creditors.
When we talk about financial planning, generally we're talking about things such as budgeting or investment allocations and things like that, and making that work to get you the money when you want it. How do you view trusts as fitting into that as well?
Well, it's one of those boxes that you need to check, and it goes along with other estate planning documents like a will, like a healthcare proxy. But important for most people, especially those in New England, to at least have the conversation around trusts and whether or not it fits into their strategy.
The guide, again, is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and it is available for you to request at no cost. All you have to do is call 800-393-4001. The title, again, is Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and the way to request the guide is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
The Copley Square Farmers Market has returned to its original home in the beautifully renovated plaza. Open Tuesdays and Fridays. Shop for locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables, sustainably raised meats and seafood, regional cheeses and handmade items, while connecting with neighbors in one of Boston's most cherished public spaces. Visit the Copley Square Farmers Market and support farmers and local makers. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit working to strengthen farmers across Massachusetts. Find markets near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Alrighty, it is Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you, and we are holding in our hands right now just a whole bunch of no longer AAA rated by Moody's U.S. government debt.
Very.
When did they get rid of bearer bonds? It had to be after Die Hard because that's what...
I was going to go 90s.
I'm curious when it was, because you can't actually hold U.S. Treasuries in your hands anymore. But you used to be able to back when you had bearer bonds, which quite honestly, as the name implied, was just, hey, if you are holding it, you own it. Like, 82. That was the deal. 82 was the last ones that they had?
Yeah. The issuance ended in 82. I assume that you could still have a bearer bond after that, but they didn't get issued anymore.
So realistically, the longest duration that they were was probably 30 years. So the last U.S. Treasury that could have been in bearer form went away by 2012. Is that right?
That would seem
I don't even know if they
me.
were issued in that
Can we
kind
explain
of...
what a bearer... I mean, it's
literally
the holder of the bond owns the value.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. You were Googling or something.
I was, yeah.
But so in any case, over the weekend, actually it was Friday at around 4:30, Moody's, who is one of the 3 major U.S. rating agencies, aside from Standard & Poor's and Fitch, decided to say, hey, you know what? We don't think the U.S. deficit picture is that sustainable anymore, and as such, we are going to downgrade you from the highest possible rating to one level below there.
Where you been, Moody's?
So this is the thing about Moody's, is they are widely viewed by Wall Street as the class clown of rating agencies. And it's not to say that like they don't have smart people working there. I'm sure they do. It's nothing about like the individuals at Moody's. It's much more. Look, S&P downgraded the U.S. back in, was it 2011 or 2012? I can't remember which one now.
You told me 2011 earlier today, so I'm going to go with what you told me earlier.
I'm just pulling it up just to make sure. Okay, here we go. So the S&P downgraded them back in 2011, which, by the way, also happened. I think it was like 8:30 on a Friday when they did this. So this wasn't
that was a big deal. They were first to the scene.
This wasn't Moody's It wasn't Moody's trying to like slip this by like a Friday news dump. This is just like when this happens because of the magnitude of it. They don't want to do it during active trading because of the stuff that it can cause. So they do it on a Friday so that banks and traders have a little bit of time over the weekend to actually think about it and figure out what they want to do with it.
And when this happened in 2011, it was pretty noteworthy, I think. We were on the heels of the Great Recession. There was a somewhat new idea that, hey, lawmakers might not extend the debt ceiling and hey, this could be an actual threat to the U.S. economy. We had just loaded up on a whole lot of debt in order to combat the effects of the Great Recession. And so this was pretty newsworthy and groundbreaking that, hey, a major agency is downgrading what is generally seen as the safest asset that exists.
There was a lot going on then, though. So, like, the thing that you come back to if you look after this is people will be like, oh, like, stocks sold off, but bonds rallied. Like, who would have thought it? Well, part of the reason that bonds rallied was that the EU was kind of in the process of, having its every 10 years, oh, we're falling apart, what do we do?
Yeah.
That was like right in the midst of the Greek debt crisis and this and that, and so investors were like trying to figure out what's actually safe to hold. And so, again, I don't think that you can like read into this and be like, oh, well, bonds got bought up then and stocks sold off, so that's what's going to happen now. Completely different environment in so many different ways.
Agreed.
So you had that back in 2011. And the big thing that S&P cited then was questions about U.S. governance and policy-making stability.
That's gotten better since 2011.
If they could only see us now. So I think that, number one, like S&P was first to the party on this. Was it right, wrong, or anything else? I have no idea. I'm not going to like say like whether or not they should have or should not, because obviously the United States has not defaulted in the 14 years since then. But they did this, and it is what it is. Other ones that you saw since then. Back in 2013, I'm not going to count like the non-major rating agencies.
Sure.
I don't even know what business there is for non-major ones, but apparently there's enough that there's actually like 5 or 6 of these guys out there. It's just no one really pays attention to the other ones. But in 2013, Fitch warned that it might cut the U.S. Credit rating, again, talking about political brinkmanship about the debt ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
In 2014, after the debt ceiling was punted, Fitch said, hey, we're, upgrading our outlook. We're not going to change, the AAA rating. In 2019, Fitch said, hey, we might, have to do something about this. And in 2023, with the debt ceiling crisis that happened then, Fitch put the U.S. on negative credit watch and then downgraded the U.S. from AAA to AA+. So last Friday, Moody's comes in and says, gosh, it's 2025. We should get in this party too. And so they downgraded the U.S. Debt from AAA to what they call AA1. They all have like their own
Slightly
unique
different
little
ones, yeah.
things, but AA1 is effectively the same as AA+ from Fitch and AA+ from S&P.
So I want to continue this, but I want to talk about where this does matter. Because like 2 weeks ago, for example, Whirlpool, the maker of washing machines, they own KitchenAid, Maytag. They were cut to junk status by S&P. Real-world implications for Whirlpool immediately. If you're cut to junk status from investment-grade quality, there are a whole bunch of investors out there, many, many investors out there who, by prospectus, are not allowed to own your debt.
Yes.
Many mutual fund managers must sell your bonds immediately. What does that do? It makes it immediately more expensive in the future to refinance your debt, to raise new debt offerings, etc., because you are given this brand of junk status, which is a certain threshold and below if you are an issuer of that debt. That is very fundamentally different than what we're talking about with the United States here.
In a couple different respects. The first is no one goes out and purchases, even when Whirlpool was, double B or something like that, no one goes out and purchases Whirlpool bonds being like, you know what? I made a bunch of dollars. I need somewhere safe to put this money for 10 years. Let me go put it in Whirlpool debt. Because if you're rated double B to begin with, even before you get downgraded from there, odds are that there are some questions about exactly what your next 10 years look like.
You're on the lowest level next to junk.
Correct. So, like, and there might even be mutual funds in the investment grade space that say, yeah, we're going to shy away from you because we have these specific concerns that we've researched. So it's not just like you hit a cliff. Like, people have already kind of shied away from you a little bit in a number of cases. In this case, and I'll go back to what happened during, the previous downgrades, one of the concerns out there is, hey, are there, insurance companies or pension plans that have to, liquidate because they can only hold AAA rated, sovereign debt? And all that most of those guys did back during all those previous, not all those previous downgrades, but the two previous ones.
Change the rules.
They just said, yeah, you know what? We can hold AA plus now.
And why?
Because,
I think this is
because they want to own U.S. Treasuries.
Yes, and they want to own U.S. Treasuries for a few reasons. One would be it's still considered to be, if not the most creditworthy, then one of the most creditworthy items that you can own. But two, it's also the most liquid. Well, and as a result of us having like a $27 trillion, $29 trillion, where are we now in terms of the total debt? Whatever. It's an incredibly liquid market for you to hold something that is quite considered quite safe.
Let's also not forget the third piece of this, which is when you're on a big boat with a cannon, you don't turn the cannon around and point it at your own hull. And if every insurance company simply said, you know what, we can't hold AAA rated debt anymore, we can't hold U.S. Treasuries because they went from AAA to AA plus, then every insurance company instantly goes out of business because all of their collateral is worthless.
Yeah.
So, part of it is they can't actually do that because they would have no one to sell to.
That's an interesting analogy, Chuck, when you're talking about the U.S. debt ceiling, pointing a cannon at your ship's own hull.
Yes, well, listen,
it also applies to those who try to vote against raising the debt ceiling.
In light of what happened at the Brooklyn Bridge a few days ago, we're all kind of in nautical mode these days again, kind of like we were back in the winter of 2022 when the Ever Given got stuck in the Suez Canal, and so, hey, I'm just playing to the zeitgeist here with what everyone's focused on. So, big thing. The actual downgrade of the U.S. debt by Moody's, non-event. But, and this is a big, big but. I appreciate that, Tucker. I appreciate that. What this gets at is something that everybody knows right now. And everybody knows that everybody knows this. Which is that you can't run deficits at 7% annually and expect to be able to get away with it without any consequences.
Right.
And, and Moody's has no unique insight into this, but the timing is interesting just because everyone's paying attention here right now. And what are the consequences as a result of that in that, hey, could any interested party who wants to say, yeah, we want to use this as a rationale for changing what we previously did? That now is in play as what people can use for, hey, you know what? We're a company based out of, name any foreign country that's not the United States. We previously held, 100% of our, excess cash in dollars because we transact mostly in dollars. We're going to be looking for alternatives for, portions of this just to balance the risks that are present to us.
So Besant said over the weekend, I believe it was, that the downgrade is a lagging indicator. And while that...
Which, by the way, I got to tell you, calling Moody's a lagging indicator...
It's a good insult.
It's
especially from him.
It's kind of like... Who's the guy that got called a medium talent on SNL? Was it Chevy Chase by Bill Murray? I think it was.
I don't know.
I forget who it was, but it was just like just this biting thing, just like, oh, like you're not awful, you're just like a medium talent. I think it was Chevy Chase who got called that by Bill Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray is yelling that at Chevy Chase. Medium talent.
This is basically like Scott Bessent calling Moody's medium talent. Like in the financial business, the last thing you want to be called is a lagging indicator.
Yeah. So I do not.
So I thought that was great, by the way.
I think it was a good insult. And in and of itself, I don't think it matters. I'm with you there. But it is another straw that has been piling on to the U.S. fiscal situation that, who am I to say? Maybe it does correlate and coincide this time with a real problem and change to the state of our, I'm not even calling it reserve currency, just our special status that the United States has had for the better part of a century.
Let's take a quick break. I want to dig more into Bessent's comments and kind of talk a little bit about them, this downgrade, and the tax plan that Congress is trying to put together right after this.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating an estate plan can be a difficult process if you aren't working with an expert who can make sure your plan is secure. Cushing & Dolan can help. Call them today at 866-848-5699. Estate planning is their business, and their new monthly guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Don't put your assets at risk and open yourself up to severe tax consequences. Even if you already have a plan, this guide may correct an issue that could come back to haunt you in the years to come. Proper estate planning is crucial to you being able to enjoy your later years, and it may be the difference between retiring comfortably or living under incredible financial pressure. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, and recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Get up-to-the-minute market updates with Wall Street Watch, weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
With Memorial Day coming, now's a great time to register for the DAV 5K taking place on Saturday, November 8th at Fort Independence on Castle Island. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots are continuing to fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston and reserve your spot, or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's DAV 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about what Scott Bessent said over the weekend, just because I think it is, again, just interesting in the context of where we stand today on the deficit. And Bessent was asked about, the Moody's downgrade, and he gave, the Moody's is a lagging indicator, line, which, got to tell you, it's a good line. But then I want to read this quote here. He says, quote, "We didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we've seen over the past 4 years that we inherited, and we are determined to bring spending down and grow the economy." So here's what I'll say on this. This is a problem that now goes back 25 years. It goes back to 2002, which really 2003. But for obvious reasons, in the wake of the bursting of the tech bubble and September 11th, the Bush 2 first term, the second Bush's first term, was not going well by his third year. And so he said, look, I got to do something in order to, boost the economy. Enter, things like Medicare Part D, a whole bunch of spending comes in. And here's where deficits have been. I'll actually go back to 1990 just to give some context here. Here are the annual deficits, percentage-wise, relative to GDP. I'll start in 1990. 3.7% in 90, 4.4% in 91. Obviously, look, you had the Gulf War going on, a lot of spending. 4.5% in 92, 3.7% in 93, 2.8%, 2.1%, 1.3%, 0.3%. That is 94 through 97. We then had 4 years of surpluses. 98, 99, 2000, 2001. All were surpluses, which, if you've listened to our show, you know my feelings about surpluses. They're not actually good things because it literally means you've taken in more taxes than you know what to do with.
And 01 was the last time.
Correct. I'm not saying run giant deficits. I'm just saying tax surpluses is literally giving money to politicians that they don't know what to do with. It doesn't seem like the best idea to me, but your mileage may vary. 2002, 1.4%, then 3.3, 3.4, 2.4, 1.8, 1.1, 3.1. So 2008 even, through 2008, we were basically running 2 to 3% deficits. That was the norm typically. And that's a pretty sustainable place to be, actually. You might say, well, why is that the case? And the answer is pretty much, look, if you're growing your economy by 5% nominally and your debt's increasing by 3% a year, your debt's actually shrinking relative to GDP each year. It's not a bad place to be. You can actually build an economy sustainably like that. Here's what we've done since then. 9.8%, 8.6%, 8.3%, 6.6%, 4.0, 2.8, 2.4, 3.1. That's through 2016. We had 3 years then out of there where we were anywhere close to 3% deficits. Yep. 2017, 3.4, 2018, 3.8, 2019, 4.6, 2020, COVID, 14.7, 2021, also COVID, 11.8, 22, 5.3, 23, 6.2, 24, 6.7. So here's where we are now, is in the last 15 years in particular, since 2009, the only years that we could credibly say we were close to a 3% annual deficit were 2014 through 2017. Everything else, we were closer to 4% or above. And so this is a problem that's 15 years in the making. Really, I call it 25 years because, Bush 2 kind of kicked this off. But we've been through 5 administrations now where there has been no major shift in the trajectory of the deficit other than up. Bush 2, Obama, Trump 1, Biden, and now Trump 2. When I say Trump 2, because if you look at kind of the numbers so far for the first 4 months, you're not seeing any meaningful shift in spending from the previous year.
And we'll get into the tax bill that has been proposed, but we're talking about an extra $3 trillion plus added.
So I think this gets to the point where, again, when you start running 6% deficits year after year, the math starts to get complicated. We'll talk about why that's the case and how this impacts the tax bill after this.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
There are critical mistakes you can make during the estate planning process that may have a damaging effect on your financial strategy. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Get yours today and make the right decisions to protect your assets. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today, we're talking about the top estate planning mistakes to avoid. Todd, a lot of people create their estate plan, but there are some that don't actually transfer assets into it. Can you explain why this is such a big mistake?
Sure. I'm going to try to explain it both from a revocable and an irrevocable planning standpoint. With the revocable, if you don't put assets in there, you end up leaving them owned perhaps jointly if you're married, and designated beneficiaries and the like. But if everything goes to the spouse when one dies, then you've completely avoided your estate plan. In other words, you've set your trust up, but you went around it by leaving everything to the spouse instead of going through it by funding the trust and cramming down the assets to shelter some from estate taxes on the first death, so there's less taxed on the second death. And ultimately, on the second death, if you don't plan, there could be a probate problem because everything would go to probate if it's in their own name. The other big reason is with an irrevocable trust, of course, not funding it also can result in estate tax problems by the same way it did with the revocable trust. But in addition to not funding them with the irrevocable, you don't even begin the 5-year waiting period to get the assets protected from the nursing home. So there's a much bigger problem not funding an irrevocable trust versus not funding a revocable trust. So make sure you fund your trust if you do your planning.
Well, luckily, Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details the estate planning blunders to avoid. You can request this brand new guide guide by simply calling 866-848-5699, 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are in negative territory to begin the week, with Treasury yields jumping higher and the dollar weakening in reaction to Moody's downgrade of the country's credit rating, citing large fiscal deficits. At the moment, the Dow down by only 40 points. S&P 500 is down over 1/3% or 23 points. NASDAQ down by 0.6%. Russell 2000 is down 1% at the moment. 10-year Treasury yield is up by 7 basis points, now at 4.51%. And crude oil up about 0.25% higher, trading at $62.62 a barrel. Walmart down by about 0.75% after President Trump called out the retailer over the weekend, saying the retail giant should eat the tariffs and not raise prices. Furthermore, Treasury Secretary Bessent told Meet the Press yesterday that Walmart CEO Doug McMillon told him the retailer would absorb some of the levies. Meanwhile, NVIDIA announced plans to deepen its partnerships with Taiwanese companies, including Foxconn, with which it plans to build an AI computer. The chipmaker also said its new NVLink Fusion program will allow customers and partners to use non-NVIDIA central processing units and graphics processing units together with its NVIDIA products and its NVLink, NVIDIA pulling back by about 0.25%. Elsewhere, Regeneron said it will acquire virtually all of 23andMe's assets for $256 million after coming out on top at a bankruptcy auction for the startup. That stock, Regeneron, is down by 1%. JP Morgan downgraded Netflix to neutral from overweight, citing the stock's recent outperformance, and noted there is no change to its long-term bullish view. Netflix down by 0.75%. After shedding 23% last week, United Health shares are slightly rebounding by 3% today. Bath & Body Works has a new CEO, naming Daniel Heaf to the new role. Heaf was most recently Nike's Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer. Bath & Body Works down by 1%. And tomorrow morning, we'll see retailer earnings from Home Depot. I'm Tucker Sylvan. That's Wall Street Watch.
All right, so we've got three stories here, and I'm feeling a little bit. You guys remember the Always Sunny episode where Charlie Day becomes a conspiracy theorist?
Sure.
That's how I'm feeling right now.
Okay.
I'm like all strung out. I got like a big wall of like all different papers behind me with like, you know, pieces of yarn going between them and stuff like that. And I'm trying to explain it to everyone. But these next three stories dovetail here. And I want to talk more about what Bessent said. I want to talk about the tax bill. And I want to talk about Walmart and the tariffs.
I can connect two of the three, but go on.
Okay. So a couple things that Bessent said that caught my eye. The first is talking about the tariffs. And they asked him, look, like, what's kind of the next plan? He said, look, we've got, so many negotiations going on, but if someone's not negotiating in good faith, they're going to get a letter saying, here is the rate, so I would expect that everyone would come and negotiate in good faith. Those that get the letter will face the tariff rate that the White House announced on April 2nd. So, I mentioned earlier, like, I love that quote from Bessent about calling Moody's a lagging indicator. Does anyone out there actually believe that the White House is going to impose the April 2nd tariff rates on countries that, like, don't play ball? Because they tried that for 12 hours and it didn't work.
Yeah, I would say not. No, I don't think any of the negotiators believe it. I don't believe it. And certainly I don't believe it with any trade partner that is significant in terms of any size
There's a
of
credibility
trade.
issue there. I mean, look, China, for all the talk about how the U.S. has the biggest problems with China out of anyone, China is below their Liberation Day rate. It was 54%. They're at 30%.
I mean, frankly, China is below most countries' Liberation Day rate.
Whatever. Like, the point is, I don't think there's much credibility on that side to be like, yes, we're going to raise the rates back to where they were stated on April 2nd.
To the point, I think they could even announce it and nobody would believe them.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would believe it would happen because they already tried it once and pulled it back the same day they were supposed to be implemented.
Yeah.
Because the market was throwing up all over itself.
Yep.
So that's point one that I found interesting. It dovetails with this piece on the tariffs and Walmart because obviously the Trump administration does not want tariffs equals price hikes to be something that is in the minds of the American people. The unfortunate thing is that tariffs are price hikes, and it's just a question of whether Walmart eats them as the Trump administration would like them to. We'll get back to that in a second. Or passes them on as Walmart said they were going to. In reality, it's going to be a combination of both. It's not all of one or all of another. But here's the piece that I think we need to continue to hone in on, which is Walmart and other retailers, they don't have wide margins. The margins are 4%. There is not a lot of juice there for Walmart to eat them. Even if Walmart said, hey, we'd love to eat as much of this as possible, they can't eat all of it.
Right. So here was the quote from President Trump over the weekend. Walmart made billions of dollars last year. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. Yes, of course, they made billions of dollars last year. That represented, according to the data I had, a 5.6% operating margin on their entire business. So, yes, we made billions of dollars, but had expenses been substantially higher, that could have been eliminated quickly because our margins are in the single-digit percentages. That doesn't.
They made
really
billions of dollars on volume.
Correct.
Look, if you want a company where, hey, they could certainly pass them through and eat them, talk to me about Visa.
Sure.
Okay? Visa, and it's not to be picking on them, but Visa has revenue of $37 billion. They made $19 billion on that. Their operating margins are north of 50%.
Yes.
This is one of those companies where I look at it and I'm like, what is it you say you do here?
It's called a monopoly, Chuck, and you need to respect it.
I appreciate that. It's not quite a monopoly because there are a couple of them.
Triopoly, maybe.
Yeah, it's maybe a quadropoly, if that's a thing. But it's there's not much competition, and they all effectively collude without colluding.
Correct.
So where I'm going with this is you have this tariff situation that I continue to come back to and say they want to raise revenue from tariffs because all the other stuff is gone at this point. If you wanted to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., you have to keep the tariffs in place more than 12 hours.
Agreed.
If you want to, dramatically alter, the flow of goods around the world, you have to keep them in place more than a month.
And if you want to have China change its practices around how they treat American businesses doing business in China,
keep them in place more than a month.
Yeah, so I agree with you. It seems to me that revenue generation in order to offset tax changes is important to the administration.
This gets me to my third point, and this is a great quote from Besson here, which I think also validates something I said last week, so of course I think it's a great quote. To go back to your question about the Moody's downgrade, who cares? Qatar doesn't, Saudi doesn't, the UAE doesn't. They're all pushing money in, and they've made 10-year investment plans. Remember, President Trump went on this big trip to the Middle East last week and secured, these investments that are going to be made in the United States. They never specified what the investments were going to be. Now, when someone normally hears, oh, we're going to make an investment in your country, you typically think, oh, you're going to build a factory or you're going to build a building or you're going to, do. And I wondered, I think it was on Friday, hey, what if the investment they're making is not an equity investment or, a construction of anything in the United States? What if it's just, we're going to buy your bonds and you're going to let us pump as much oil as we can in order to keep oil prices low for you. And in return, we get a bunch of high-end chips that we can do whatever we want with.
And that's a hint that was the case.
Right, if Besson is talking about this Qatari investment, the Saudi investment, the UAE investment, in the context of the Moody's announcement, doesn't it suggest that much of that investment could come in the form of purchases of U.S. bonds rather than building a factory or investing in U.S. companies?
Seems to, yeah.
It could be. And so this gets me then.
Oh, wow.
I know. I'm
totally Charlie Day in this.
I know.
one.
So if you look over here, so this gets me then to the tax bill, because it is painfully clear now. And again, the details are, going to be what they are. The tax bill is not going to reduce the deficit. It is going to increase it. It's a matter of how much.
It was clear from day one, guys. There hasn't been a tax bill
Mike,
that has reduced the deficit since pre-Reagan.
I always take an open mind until I start to see the details, because I don't want to come in preconditioned to say this is going to be X, Y, or Z. But here's where we're going on this. The best case scenario for the tax bill right now is that it maintains 6% deficits. It's the best case.
Yep.
The worst case ones are like closer to 8%. And so where I'm going with this is they need the revenue from the tariffs in order to try to make the math. And part of this is also securing commitments from foreign countries with a boatload of money to say, hey, if the math doesn't math, are you still with us on this? And here's what we can give you in order for you to be with us. That is where I am. I don't have
I think
anything
you connect those dots.
I don't have anything left to say.
I think you did it well. Might need to listen to the tape to see if I can follow it again the second day, but I hear you.
I don't have anything else to say. I'm done.
One thing I'll say. You know what I don't want to own as a company?
Hold on. Blockbuster.
One that reduces their profit margins intentionally to kiss up to the White House. So I don't think Walmart's going to do that.
Here's the thing. Okay, here's one other thing to watch. Just because you brought it up, and I do think this is going to be interesting. When the tax bill finally passes, they're going to pass something. Like I don't know exactly what it's going to pass in some way, shape, or form, probably in the next 3 to 4 months. When the tax bill finally passes and everything that these companies want is codified into law, now that Walmart and Home Depot and Apple have gotten what they want from Congress, what do they say about their spending plans then? I'm just curious. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about why Europe is out as a vacation destination and road trips are in, man. Where are we going in the old Volkswagen bus? Who knows? But where we're going, we don't need roads right after this.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for your next New England vacation. Located just off Route 6 in Hyannis, the resort has everything you need to enjoy an incredible week with your family or a quick weekend getaway. Along with first-class accommodations and food, Fins Up Water Park is packed with aquatic adventures that will keep the kids entertained for hours. The summer season is coming soon, so make plans today for a fun-filled vacation at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. For more information and to book your trip, visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
Creating an estate plan can be a difficult process if you aren't working with an expert who can make sure your plan is secure. Cushing & Dolan can help. Call them today at 866-848-5699. Estate planning is their business, and their new monthly guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Don't put your assets at risk and open yourself up to severe tax consequences. Even if you already have a plan, this guide may correct an issue that could come back to haunt you in the years to come. Proper estate planning is crucial to you being able to enjoy your later years, and it may be the difference between retiring comfortably or living under incredible financial pressure. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Celebrate the arrival of summer with the best of what's local and fresh. Farmers markets across Massachusetts are packed with vibrant produce, pasture-raised meats, local seafood, small batch cheeses, and artisan-made goods. From ripe strawberries to artisan finds, markets are the soul of our neighborhoods. Stop by your community market and support farmers and local makers. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, helping grow farmers markets across the state. Find your local market at massfarmersmarkets.org.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
I thought I was done with the Scott Bessent interview. I have one other thing that I want to come back to in terms of what he was talking about over the weekend. And, you know, he was asked, look, how are you going to get the U.S. out of this situation? And there are 2 ways. When talking about a high debt to GDP ratio, there are 2 ways that you can do it. The first is by saying we are going to cut the deficit. That's what they were saying for the last 6 months or so. Second is what Scott said over the weekend. I'll quote, "We are going to grow the GDP faster than the debt growth, and that will stabilize the debt to GDP, which is the most important number."
So he agrees they're not going to cut deficits.
They're going to run it hot.
Yeah.
They're going to run it hot and hope that you can get to like 8% nominal GDP and 6% annual debt on GDP and shrink it that way. Is it going to work? I don't know. But
I want to be really clear.
It's not really.
It has never worked in 45 years of tax cuts.
Well, no.
Not saying it will work. It won't work this time, but it has.
So this approach is what the U.S. basically did after World War II.
Yep.
And it did work then.
Yep.
But it was also a very different economy then. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Last 45
yes.
years, when you've done this sort of thing, it has not done what they are describing. So maybe it does this time.
Well, this isn't talking even just about tax cuts. This is literally just, hey, we don't want. There's no way that we can cut the deficit,
right?
And so we're just going to try to shrink it through growing the economy faster.
Mm-hmm.
Can it work? Yes. It also has really high risks associated with it. In that, look, even in the successful example after World War II, in early 1951, the U.S. was seeing 21% annualized inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
there's your risk.
Again, it worked in that the U.S. debt situation was much more under control after that. But how many of you listening were working in 1949? The answer is none of you.
Correct.
I don't think we have many 102-year-old people listening right now.
A few, but not many.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
And we love them. But That's what it is.
Creating the right estate plan to help secure your future takes effort. Cushing & Dolan are experts in estate planning, and their new guide is called Detour Ahead: Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. In it, you'll learn how to make the right decisions to always protect your assets while avoiding costly mistakes, any one of which could have a dramatic and damaging effect on your financial strategy. As an example, if you've created a trust more than 10 years ago and haven't updated it since, you're setting yourself up for some problems. Don't take chances with the assets you've worked so hard to attain. Cushing & Dolan's new guide will help you address issues like this. So call right now, 866-848-5699, and ask for your copy of their new free guide called Detour Ahead: Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
By the way, this calculus, if I'm reading this right, is pretty much the same decision that the Biden administration made.
Oh, great.
With the difference being the Biden administration said, we're not going to cut taxes, but we're going to increase spending.
Yep.
Here's the IRA with a bunch of green money coming out.
Arguably why you didn't get a recession back in 2022.
But also exacerbated inflation, and people felt generally uncomfortable with how things were going. This is another gamble along the same lines. Will it work better or worse? I have no idea. Right. But this is why I continue to go back to, in the last 25 years, there has not been an administration that has been able to credibly take on the deficit. Whereas the really interesting thing is you look at basically the 80s, 90s, and basically the 80s and 90s, and it was the opposite. Reagan didn't like it, raised taxes. Had to.
Yep.
Bush raised taxes. Cost him. Clinton cut spending. Had to. Like, you could look at 3 presidents in a row and be like...
Or at least they thought they had to at the time.
They did. Yeah. I mean, like...
They did do it. And since that point in time, the entire narrative has shifted, which is...
Deficits don't matter.
Deficit's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting school of economics.
Here's the thing, to be completely honest. It basically has been to this point over the last 80 years.
It's been a great gamble. It's been a great gamble.
Every time you got concerned about the deficit for the last 80 years, you said, short that idea, it's not going to be a problem.
Yep.
You were right.
Yep.
Maybe it will be this time too, but the math is just not mathing, is where I'm kind of getting. And it's been building for 25 years now. Like, this is not a Donald Trump thing. This is not a George W. Bush thing. It's not a Barack Obama. It's an all of, we've all gotten to this point together. And we're in uncharted territory. I don't know exactly how this plays out over the next... This is like a 10 to 15 year thing that you're going to have to see unfold. We'll take a quick break here. When we come back, hour 2 in just a bit.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up, because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, two of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for your next New England vacation. Located just off Route 6 in Hyannis, the resort has everything you need to enjoy an incredible week with your family or a quick weekend getaway. Along with first-class accommodations and food, Fins Up Water Park is packed with aquatic adventures that will keep the kids entertained for hours. The summer season is coming soon, so make plans today for a fun-filled vacation at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. For more information and to book your trip, visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan. Mike, a lot of times when we talk about financial planning, it's with the idea of having your money available to you to use when you need to use it. How do trusts work to kind of keep that idea going, not just for yourself, but also for the next generation as well?
Sure, and it doesn't always need to be the next generation, because how many times have you heard somebody say, hey, look, I raised my kids, they're in a good spot, I want the less check I write to bounce. I'm spending this money. But, there can be situations where trust can benefit even a married couple in the event of a lawsuit or a nursing home that's unexpected, especially if there's a big age gap. That can be critical. But for next generation planning, it gets much more common, and especially in the New England area where most states have an estate tax, there's a lot that can be done from a multi-generational planning perspective to, if not eliminate those taxes, at least mitigate them to a large degree. I mean, you think about here in New England, the value of your primary residence, which you sell, it might not be subject to capital gains tax, but if you die, is most certainly subject to estate taxes. There's a lot that can be done in the way of trust planning.
Our guide this month is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001. Again, that number is 800-393-4001, and the guide this month is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan and details a number of ideas about how you can fit trusts into your financial plan.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Hour 2 here on the Financial Exchange. Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. We got markets very modestly negative. No major movement today overall. The Dow is actually only off 15 points, so barely budging. We've got the S&P 500 down about 20 points, about 1/3%, and the NASDAQ currently down 107 points, or about 0.5%. So again, not a ton of movement as markets have rallied off the lows that they were at early this morning, where the S&P was down almost 1%, the NASDAQ down about 1.5%, but we've gotten a pretty significant bounce off those lows, though still some laggards that are, kind of pulling things back, most notably Apple off a couple percentage points, Nvidia down 0.5%, and Tesla down about 3%. Those some of the biggest drags, but look, this is kind of broad-based. You do have more stocks up than down in the S&P 500 today, and so it's something where, there's clearly a little bit of pain that is being felt, but again, overall, you're not really seeing anything too significant as we sit here today.
Bonds were moving down earlier in trading. I saw the 10-year off, I think, about 11 the yield on the 10-year was up by about 11 basis points. Today, now it's up about 6 basis points. Even on the 30-year, only up about 7. So that trade is still taking place, but calmed down a fair bit since around 9 a.m. this morning.
Oil not moving very much, down 18 cents a barrel to $62.31 on West Texas Intermediate. We got gold rallying pretty strongly today, up 51.20 an ounce to $32.38 and 40 cents. Want to kick things off with this story from the Wall Street Journal. It's titled, "Europe is out. Road trips are in. Welcome to the scaled back vacation." And what it talks about, it gives a couple anecdotes to this effect as well. But hey, in light of some of the uncertainty that is out there in the economy, people are changing their vacation plans, and in some cases scaling them back. They talk about one such family who they were planning on heading out to San Diego for Comic-Con, the big comic, not festival, but convention, obviously, at the end of July. Instead, they said, you know what, we're going to cancel this, and we're not going to go this year,
right?
Just because we're a little bit nervous about, what things look like economically for us.
What I found intriguing was we actually had something resembling hard data in here from the Wall Street Journal. They got a hold of something from Bank of America that had card data. And what it found is that year over year, the transactions per household on airlines and lodging. It's a good detail. That gives you a chart, at least, that we can work off of. Those are down about, from this chart that I'm seeing, it looks like 7-ish% compared to this time last year.
Yeah.
So that's a meaningful decline. And you go take a look at restaurants and everything else, they're up compared to the same time last year. And so I do look at that. This is not a, hey, everybody's pulling back on everything story. This is a bit of a domestic story of Americans specifically pulling back on spending on airlines and lodging. The other area that I think we are very definitively seeing it, and this article mentions it, the volume of Canadian travel to the U.S. down about 15% year over year. I suspect that the same thing is true when you go look at, for instance, European or Latin American travel to the United States as well right now. Somewhat for different reasons. There's certainly some stuff around immigration. There's some stuff around just general frustration with the United States and its policies. And I think that's all culminating in stuff that we're seeing from the likes of Delta Airlines talking about cutting routes, cutting seats, and not hiring quite as much as they're planning on.
Now, the question on this is going to be, is any of this actually big enough to cause a shift in the U.S. economy? And Mike and I have the same view on this, which is generally, look, Americans generally don't stop spending unless forced to.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen in this case is, yes, we've seen a decline in both transactions and actual dollar spending on airlines and hotels and things like that. But it's shifted elsewhere where people have been buying more cars right now and people have been going out for, more meals, as you indicated. And so it's not that the spending level has dropped precipitously overall. It's just the categories of where people are spending has been shifting. Now, could this end up being a large enough magnitude move to then result in, layoffs across airlines, which then impacts spending elsewhere? Sure, it could, but I'm just not sure there's enough meat there for me to get behind anything that's even borderline recessionary.
Yeah, some stories that are part of these narratives that I'm hearing too is, I opened up my my portfolio in April and I decided to cancel the trip. Well, then did you rebook it?
Wait until May.
When you saw it in May. I finally saw my credit score get hit from the student loans kicking back in and, I can no longer go on that trip. Call me naive, but I don't think that person that couldn't pay their student loan was the same one that was buying a first-class ticket on Delta. So I'm not.
You never know.
You don't. I mean,
someone had to buy those Fire Festival tickets.
Fiscal irresponsibility takes some really weird turns, but I get the sense that was predominantly 65-plus-year-olds who have been retired and are planning out their dream vacations for the last few years, and I've been slowly pulling those back. So I'm just not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not buying that the market dip or that the fears about the economy are what's driving a decrease in travel. I am buying that, maybe it happened for a few weeks. I'm buying that foreigners going into the United States or booking on domestic airlines, those might be, playing a role in this. I'm not there that, so many Americans are concerned about the economy that they're changing their travel plans.
No, I'm not either. I think it's something to monitor and see, how it evolves, but I'm just not there yet.
And by the way, even if they are there with their travel plans, I think they're going to spend the money elsewhere, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it's look, we've got a lot of data on this a lot of good data going back, 60, 70 years now.
Americans are bad with money.
It's pretty rare for the savings rate to increase before a recession. That's not usually how it works. When you look at it, I'm just pulling up the chart right now just so I can actually give some hard data on this and not just, speaking extemporaneously, just what I love to do, obviously. Okay, so here, this is actually perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. So let's talk about heading into the 1970 recession. The savings rate dropped from 12.3% down to 11.1% just prior to the recession, and then during the recession rose up to over 13%. It then, coming out of it, dropped again down to 11.5% before rising back up to 14%, during the 1973-74 recession. The savings rate afterwards dropped from 12.7% all the way down to 10% before bouncing back up during the 1980 recession. Heading into Y2K, the tech bubble, over the course of the entire 90s, the savings rate dropped from 10% down to around 4% before spiking up to north of 6% during the tech bubble and 9/11 recession. It then fell from that 5-6% range down to around 2% before the financial crisis, before spiking up to north of 7% over the course of the financial crisis. Americans save more only when forced to by the fact that a recession is actually happening.
Yeah.
The spending otherwise, it just moves around. And yeah, people aren't spending on airfare right now. They spent on cars. Bigly. Like, you better believe it. So I think that my view on spending, a spending drop by Americans is not going to be the cause of a recession this year.
Yeah.
If you want to look for the places where you could have it, two possible factors in terms of where a recession could come from. Number one, businesses saying, we don't know what the tariff environment's going to be like. We are going to pull back on spending because we need to protect our business and make sure that we're not out over our skis. The corollary to that is, hey, we're taking a hit from tariffs because we're trying to eat some of the tariff cost. We need to lay people off in order to maintain our margins, and that causes the spending drop that causes a recession. Those are the two possibilities out there. Americans saying, oh, we're a little bit nervous about the economy, and we're just going to not... Those facts are not in evidence.
All of that having been said, you own a restaurant in Portland, Maine. You own a
bed and breakfast in the Lakes region in New Hampshire.
Yeah, whatever you operate in Burlington, Vermont. You're probably feeling this.
What do you mean whatever you operate in Burlington,
I was having
Vermont?
A tough time coming up
Brewery.
A brewery in Burlington,
Dispensary.
Vermont. Dispensary in Burlington, Vermont.
Hell yeah.
I think you are going to have a struggle this summer. You might have a more difficult time than before because, Canadian tourism is down 15% to the United States, and frankly, a lot of it happens in some of those areas.
Let's take a quick break here. When we return, we've got trivia, and then we're talking oil right after this.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts in Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. There are critical mistakes you can make during the estate planning process that may have a damaging effect on your financial strategy. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Get yours today and make the right decisions to protect your assets. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod in Hyannis. Looking for a great vacation spot? Look no further than Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. Located just off Route 6, Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for a weekend getaway or a fun-filled family vacation. You'll enjoy first-class accommodations and dining, our incredible Fins Up water park, and of course, the gorgeous pageantry of the Cape. Visit Margaritaville Resort's CapeCod.com for reservations and more information. Trivia here on the Financial Exchange. Over the weekend, SNL concluded its 50th season with host Scarlett Johansson. This was Johansson's 7th time hosting SNL, the most for a female host. Johansson is one of 7 female members of the SNL 5-Timers Club. Trivia question today: who was the first female host to join the SNL 5-Timers Club? Once again, who's the first female hosts to join the SNL 5-Timers Club. Be the 5th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the 5th correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Piece today from the Financial Times, and it dovetails with a piece from the Wall Street Journal as well. Are big oil companies prepared for a prolonged market downturn? The second one is U.S. drillers say peak shale has arrived, basically saying they expect production to start declining over the next year or so. And it gets at something that we've talked about quite a bit, which is, look, you can have high oil prices, or you can have, well, it's this. You can have high oil prices and high U.S. production. You cannot have low oil prices and high U.S. production. You have to
not
choose
for a long
one
period
of
of
those
time.
Things.
Yeah.
And
by the way, if big oil companies are not prepared for a prolonged market downturn, then their boards need to be brought out and fired, because it is an industry that is defined by exactly what we are seeing right here, which is boom and bust. So of course they're prepared.
Quite honestly, they've spent the last 5 years preparing for this. There's a reason why they weren't drilling a ton of new wells over the last few years, and it's because they didn't think the prices where they were sustainable. And oh, gee, by the way, they're right, because they know more about, energy prices than I do.
It's not to say that you won't have bankruptcies in the energy space should oil prices stay at $60-ish or below. There, of course, will be. There always are. But this isn't the question. It's, are big oil companies prepared? And you better bet that BP, Shell, and ExxonMobil are ready for a period of time where oil prices don't look so attractive.
Yeah, and this gets...
I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm just...
No, but this gets at the question then, which is, look, U.S. shale has been the marginal producer in energy markets for the last 15 years now. It has been the swing producer. It hasn't been, OPEC or, it's been U.S. producers. But what we are seeing here is with shale wells, and again, this is from my admittedly crude understanding of them, but
do you get it,
shale wells decline much more rapidly than conventional oil wells in terms of their production capacity. It's something where there's a relatively rapid drop-off over the first 3 to 4 years. And so what that means is that you have to be in the business of constantly drilling new wells, because you don't just drill it and say, okay, this is going to produce X barrels a day for the next 10 years. I'm good. You have to build in significant declines of anywhere from 30 to 50% over a 3 to 5 year period that well is going to decline in production. And so ultimately what that means is, hey, if companies right now are making the choice to slow down on shale exploration, there is something over the next few years that is going to show up in U.S. production, because U.S. production is not stable with it being predominantly shale-driven at this point.
Right.
So what it means is potentially lower U.S. production over the next several years, and that's a decision that is, it's not going to be easily reversed. You don't just wake up one morning and say, hey, you know what? Let's drill a new oil well. Let's see how it goes. These are decisions that these companies plan out on decade-long time horizons. And so if that decision is being made now, it's not going to be reversed anytime soon.
Part of the question to me then is, one, I don't think you or I have the expertise to know just how dry the shale is. But should prices bump back up to $100 a barrel, which, who knows? Saudis can make it happen tomorrow. Does the United States eventually have the same pumping impulse that brings those prices back down, or are we no longer capable of being that release valve for when prices shoot up? Because that's been a defining factor of the U.S., frankly, of the global oil market over the last 15 years has been, hey, whenever prices get really high up there, the U.S. just starts pumping and brings it back down, sometimes to their own detriment.
I think 2022 is the example that I would give now to say U.S. shale, U.S. producers are not moving in the same fashion they used to, because 2022, if it happened 10 years ago, if it happened in 2012, you would have had the rig count double in the United States. And instead, let me pull it up because this is one of those puppies that I do have out there. Instead, when you look at what happened in 2022 for the U.S. rig count, let's see, U.S. is purple here. Okay. At the end of 2021, 586 rigs in the ground in the United States. By the end of 22, you went up to 779. So it was like a 50% bump. So still, but again, that was on oil prices doubling. And then by middle of 23, you were right back down to where you were before. And you've basically hung out there since. So you compare this to what we saw back in, the mid-2000s. Rig count went from 845 in 2003 up to 2018 and 2008. Rigs more than doubled over that time period. And then since then, you've just been on like kind of a steady decline. Some of this is because we've gotten better at drilling, so you just don't need as many rigs in the ground because you don't have to do. If you don't have to drill as many holes and you can get the same output, it saves you money, which is part of how they've been able to be cost competitive in these, prices as opposed to needing 70, 80 a barrel oil to be able to compete. But as that marginal play, that swing producer, I don't think they're them right now. Quick break. When we come back, we get the trivia answer, and then we'll talk about people filing for Social Security early. Why are so many people doing it? We'll discuss after this.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, two of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
A solid financial plan has many layers, and trusts are often a core piece. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Understanding the various kinds of trusts that exist can be extremely beneficial to your strategy. If you're retired or nearing retirement age, a trust may help you with a wide range of issues, such as asset protection, tax efficiency, and avoiding probate. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. We'll discuss a number of different trusts and the areas in which they may help and how to determine which one may be right for you. Even if you already have a trust in place, this guide can provide a description of certain issues that may arise and could help you decide if changes are needed. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and get your guide today, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about the top estate planning mistakes to avoid. Todd, what is the downside of adding your kids to your accounts or adding their names to your real estate deeds as a joint owner? Won't this avoid probate?
You're absolutely right. It would avoid probate, but there are better ways to avoid probate than just doing something simple, right? Simple isn't always better. Throwing a name on an account or adding a designated beneficiary or a joint owner on a piece of property might not be the best way to go. Here's the problem. If you name one of your children as a joint owner and you have 3 children and you put that child on just because it's convenient and they're geographically close to you, well, you could be accidentally disinheriting your other children because this property, this asset will only go to that child. That child doesn't have to give it to the other kids. So that's a problem. And if you put your name, if you add a child's name to your real estate, now you're exposing it to that child's creditors, that child's potential divorces. That's never good. And plus, you've lost control over it. If you try to sell it, you need that kid's permission, and half the money would go to that kid. Please, folks, set up a trust, fund your trust much better than just trying to do it shorthanded and just give away assets or adding names to accounts.
Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details the estate planning blunders to avoid. You can request this brand new guide by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia question today was, who was the first female host to join the SNL Five Timers Club? That would be Candice Bergen. Bergen hosted the 3rd episode of SNL and became the first female to host 5 episodes of SNL when she hosted in May 1990. Winner today of the Financial Exchange Show t-shirt was Alan from Berwick, Maine. Congrats to Alan. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, why are so many retirees filing for Social Security earlier than they used to?
I think there's a few things going on here, but just to cite the facts here, an additional 276,000 people filed for Social Security benefits in the fiscal year that ended in April. So year over year, it's a 13% bump from the previous year in terms of Social Security filers, and you cannot just explain that with older Americans. Like, yes, the baby boomers are getting older. More of them are either being forced onto Social Security or becoming eligible for it. But that does not explain the entire gap here. There's not 13% more baby boomers in this year than there were the previous year. A few other things are going on. One, some 50,000 people suddenly became eligible for Social Security on their own earnings records due to the Social Security Fairness Act. So if you haven't read up on what that is, you probably know about it if you're a teacher or other government worker, but a whole bunch of other people became eligible for Social Security that weren't previously. So that's part of that 276. But I honestly think there's more things going on here. I think that people are genuinely paying attention to the news about the funding of Social Security, the fact that it is not getting enough revenue in to continue to cover payments forever, the fact that they are cutting jobs at the Social Security Administration. Then, frankly, whenever you have market volatility, you do see Social Security filings tick up a little bit. But here's my overall conclusion. I don't know exactly what's pushing this up. I think it's probably a combination of what I mentioned: increased worry about the program itself, concern about the state of the economy, obviously the Social Security Fairness Act pushing more people onto the program as well. But one thing that I see over and over again is retirees treating Social Security differently than just about any other asset or income stream that they have.
Yeah.
And that one is a bit confounding to me. They put it on this separate category compared to, say, their 401k or any other thing. And my conclusion is just don't do that. Just treat it like you do any other asset that you have. And it is an asset. It is a guarantee from the Social Security Administration to pay you an income stream for the rest of your life. And so you should treat it as such rather than treating it as this kind of mythical guarantee that you have later in life, because that's where I see mistakes getting made is, I have to treat this differently than I would my IRA or the pension that I have from my employer because it's Social Security.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you and I have talked about quite a bit is, let's say that we get to 2020 or 2032 or 33, whenever the trust fund ends up, quote, running out. Do either of us actually believe that there's a significant chance they're just going to be like, well, all you retired people are screwed except your 20% drop in Social Security and deal with it?
Yeah, certainly not for any prolonged period of time. No. I mean, I think it's unlikely that it happens at all. If it did happen, I think it would be like a 30-day warning where all of a sudden lawmakers are getting panicked calls.
Well, you can't do anything about it anyways then.
True.
Like, here's the thing. If you claim early, all you're doing is making that worse down the road then.
Yep. So my point would be that very frequently the program itself is frequently misunderstood. The likely solutions to how they fix the problem, I think, are also pretty misunderstood. But if you find yourself thinking about that Social Security program differently than you do every other asset or income stream that you have, I think it requires a rethink. First of all, learn all the rules. Learn how it works. Learn what the rules are if you claim at 62 versus 70, how much of an increase you end up getting. It's not just an increase on your birthday. There's a prorated increase. There's rules around whether you are Medicare age, whether you are full retirement age, how much you're able to earn on the side. There's all these important rules, not to mention how it's actually taxed. But you need to treat it just like you would any other bucket of money that you're entitled to. And if you could use some assistance on the planning around that benefit, understanding the full context of your retirement strategy, and then when to pull the Social Security based on that rather than based on what your cousin Vinny did or, fears about the Social Security Administration staffing or your 401k or whether or not the program can still fund itself 10 years from now. That's the way to judge all this, because none of us know any of those other things. I don't know how long you or Vinny are going to live. I don't know how they're going to fix the program, but we do know how the rules work today and the state of your personal financial scenario. And if you are, again, making these decisions in a vacuum, I would really encourage you to give us a call here at Armstrong Advisory Group to build that plan, to build that strategy so you can make an informed decision. The number is 800-393-4001. Again, that's the number for the Armstrong Advisory Group. We'll sit down with you to customize your strategy at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Let's see. Do we want to talk about condos or EVs?
Let's go EVs.
Okay. So, Wall Street Journal exclusive here. It's titled, GM is pushing hard to tank California's EV mandate. And kind of wild because, coming out of 2020 and into 21, you could make an argument that GM was the most aggressive out of any major automaker in trying to commit to building EVs.
Yeah, they all were pushing it,
not all
other
of them,
than Toyota and Honda. So the Japanese automakers were not fully on board, but you go talk to Volkswagen, General Motors, they were all making this public statement and push.
And it's to the point now where GM sent an email. I don't know who it was because obviously the company can't send an email like someone at the company had to. But it was an email sent to all white-collar employees. We need your help. Emission standards that are not aligned with market realities pose a serious threat to our business by undermining consumer choice and vehicle affordability. And then basically saying, hey, go and talk to your senators in order to try to basically nullify this California rule about that bans bans the sale of new gas cars and trucks. And basically what this is, for how this works mechanically, is the Senate has a waiver in place that allows California to set its own tailpipe emissions because it's a huge state. It's got 50 some odd million people.
Sure.
And this is basically saying, hey, we want the Senate to vote to revoke that waiver so California can't do this anymore.
So here's where I land on this. I think the policy's dumb.
Which one?
California's. Trying to require all vehicles be electric by 2035, I think is a bad idea, and I think it's going to hurt.
For a state with rolling blackouts every summer?
I think it's going to dramatically hurt the citizens of that state. But if you're going to revoke their power to make stupid decisions, that's where I'm kind of struggling with this. And I know that it's auto emission standards, and I recognize that these are national companies that are selling to many markets and how complicated that makes it. But just again, we talk about this all the time. Fast forward 7 years, and there's a different Congress in there that is much more liberal leaning. Imagine they go and tell Texas, you cannot have any gas-powered vehicles anymore or any diesel-powered vehicles anymore. This is the power that Congress is saying that they have. And I'm just not sure that you want them to have that.
Well, but Congress already said they have it.
Right.
Like, it was already through an act of Congress that did this.
Yep.
So I don't know what the right answer is other than this. We are not going to be 100% EVs in 2035.
Regardless of California's rules.
So I guess here's the question. Is GM lobbying the wrong people? Is the question I would raise. Because honestly, given like what we're seeing with EV adoption right now, wouldn't you rather spend your time, effort, and less money lobbying California, politicians instead?
Maybe, but here's what would really be nice for GM is if there were no longer a patchwork of rules when it came to emission standards state by state. And I think that's what they're trying to get to is, hey, we want one national standard.
Well, the standard has basically been California.
Yep.
Because, again, this has been in place for a long time. Like, this is not I don't know when this originally went into place, not the EV mandate, but like the waiver for California's ability to set its own emission standards.
Yeah.
This has been in place, I want to say, like 30 or 40 years.
Right.
So California has basically set kind of where U.S. emission standards are going. They've gotten this one horribly wrong because you're just not getting to 100% EV adoption 10 years from now. You're just not. And I'm not even sure that that's where you should be going.
Yeah, from a number of perspectives, it does not work for your state.
So, with that, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about something else right after this in Stack Roulette.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Creating an estate plan can be a difficult process if you aren't working with an expert who can make sure your plan is secure. Cushing & Dolan can help. Call them today at 866-848-5699. Estate planning is their business, and their new monthly guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Don't put your assets at risk and open yourself up to severe tax consequences. Even if you already have a plan, this guide may correct an issue that could come back to haunt you in the years to come. Proper estate planning is crucial to you being able to enjoy your later years, and it may be the difference between retiring comfortably or living under incredible financial pressure. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John and are consistently voted one of the top Caribbean vacation destinations. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, rich history, and a vibrant nightlife. Book your trip now to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. For reservations and more information, go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Mike, what do you got for Stack Roulette?
Student loan borrowers are starting to see their credit scores plummet. Just a couple interviews that they did with folks who did not start making payments on their student loans after the deadlines. As a reminder, these deadlines, October of 2023 is when payments resumed, but they were shielded from the consequences of not making payments because they weren't allowed to, the agencies were not allowed to report to credit bureaus for another year. That has now begun, and those credit scores are dropping pretty rapidly. So loan servicers began reporting delinquent accounts to credit bureaus in January of this year. Wage garnishments for borrowers who are more than 270 days late on payments are expected to resume, quote, soon. I've seen a June date for anyone on Social Security. I assume that that's the same case for collecting wages. There were a few interviews done here, and I just...
Some of them are not particularly sympathetic.
No, they're not. And look, I am sympathetic for people that genuinely can't afford this stuff, but the interviews that are getting done here, I don't want to mention her name. They do in the article, but a woman who lives down in Florida who's 26 years old basically admitted to completely ignoring the emails she was getting because they didn't think they were specific to her, even though they kept saying, like, start your payment, get back on. And one, that's just like crazy. You graduated with a degree, you knew you borrowed money, and you're getting emails from the Department of Education to start your payments, and you just completely ignored them. Two, who would hire you? I'm just going to throw my hand up. I would not hire somebody who consistently admits that they ignored and then just thought the emails weren't relevant to her, somebody who had this much I don't know how much she had in student loan debt, but that's not a great indication of your attention to detail.
No. There are certain situations where you're like,
There's another person who had surgery, an emergency surgery, and lost their job, and they can't make the payments. I feel genuinely bad for you, and I think there should be a better system in place to allow you to restructure some of this debt in some way, and I don't feel great about that one. But to the woman who just ignored all the emails until her credit score dropped by 150 points, I'm like, what are we even doing here?
But again, the reason why you can't restructure this is because if you actually allowed the restructuring, the interest rates would have to be twice as high as they are.
Yeah, that's the real answer here is there is not underwriting for student loans in the way that there are any other type of debt out there. So therefore, we make the decision that, hey, because there's no underwriting, because we're not going to limit the issuance of these loans, we're also not going to allow them to go through bankruptcy and get restructured.
Yeah.
And that's a trade-off.
And look, if you want to know why the finances of college are broken, that's basically it. And there's no benchmark that colleges need to clear in order to. I mean, there are benchmarks, but they're not like
they're very
strictly
low
enforced.
benchmarks.
They're very low, and
for what you can. For what credentials you need to maintain to be able to receive federal student loans.
Because here's the thing: if you actually, this is not my original thought, so I'm not going to claim that it is, but here's the way that you actually fix college if you really want to, which no one does because then the gravy train stops. Number one, you say, okay, we are going to allow for student loans to be able to be discharged, which means they have to be underwritten. So you're going to actually underwrite student loans, which means higher rates. Number two, you're going to go to colleges and you're going to say, in order to receive federal student loan money, you need to commit to at least half of your students coming from families that make less than the median income in the United States. Because otherwise, all you're doing is you're giving a bunch of money to people above that median income already to send them to a place where you're then going to be entrenching them in the upper, echelons of earnings power based on what we see from how colleges, reflect higher earnings over the course of a lifetime. So if you actually want to be of the opinion that, this happens, okay, fine. You want tax-exempt status as an institution on your endowment? Commit to actually having half your students coming from below median income households. You don't have to be like, no, it comes from like this race or this gender, but if we're going to give you a bunch of money to send people to school, then you need to send people to school that do not have good incomes and actually need that money. But we're not going to do that because then the gravy train stops.
Yeah. And even with that, I'm not sure. Yeah, the gravy train stops from a number of perspectives. Remember, too, that one of the main ways these colleges fund themselves is from a whole bunch of wealthy foreign students.
Yes.
And that would completely screw up that formula.
Totally. Again, we're not going to do this. I'm not saying it's realistic. Sure. I'm just saying this is where we are. We're not going to fix it. Is a condo really worth it right now? Well,
which one? Where?
What does that even mean? Is a condo
you got
worth
one for sale?
Right now? That's like being like, is the road crowded? I don't know. There's lots of them, man. So here's the deal. Yeah. At a certain point, despite rising HOA fees, rising insurance fee premiums, all this stuff, condos can make sense. If you walked up to me right now and were like, hey, I'll give you a free condo on South Beach, done. I'm in. Sign me up. Free condo on South Beach, I'm in. But am I going to pay $5 million for a condo on South Beach that has, a $10,000 a month, No, I'm not going to because it's insane since you don't know where the cost structure is going on that.
Couple of things about a condo that would worry me right now. What is the state of the association's finances and how do I know it?
Yep.
Because you don't usually audit these things when you're buying a single condo. 2, what is the association's feeling towards short-term rentals if I'm planning on doing that? Because they can change those rules at a whim. And if you're buying one for a place other than to live in yourself, that could be a real concern for you.
So is a condo worth it right now? No clue. But if you wanted to give me a free condo, I'd figure it out. So yeah, there's a price at which everything is worth it. Even condos. Let's take a quick break for the entire rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow